Hey, what's up? It's 1:11 a.m. August 19th, 2021. I'm going to do a couple of things here. First of all, I think somebody did an illegal derivative action with my court attempts. I think that's exactly what's been happening. Now, my understanding is if you do a derivative action, by law, if you do a derivative action, including against an LLC, which I have, by the way, then you have to give them 90 days notice, and you're not allowed to commence the action until the 91st day. My understanding is the benchmark they're working with right now is May 20th, which means that yesterday would have been the 91st day, if I'm not mistaken, and that the day before that, which was the 17th, would have been the 90th day. That means that the 16th would have been the 89th day. Am I correct? Let me check real quick. Yes, and not only that, May 20th is one indicator, but if you have back end access, including through the court system, then you know that the May 20th is actually a response to May 19th, which means what? Well, it means that the 16th then would have been the 90th day, not the 89th day. So on the 90th day, you decide what you're going to do is. Yes, okay, we'll get to that in the next one. But before that, I want to get to something else. Just to acknowledge a couple of timelines. I did say that I needed a response from the Department of Defense about some matters that occurred, including in connection with a contract for a project called Aegis in Afghanistan that had been terminated. Apparently, it had been terminated in February or January and February of 2017. I finished my part of that report, which also is connected to what I understand to be serious crimes, before dawn, before sunrise on Monday morning, August 16th. So before opening of business or opening of the courthouse on Monday morning, I had already finished my report that I needed to be compliant with my understanding of what would have been necessary in regards to a response to or from or in regards to DoD activities at this time regarding Afghanistan, and also as a follow up on an investigation I had specifically requested at the highest level, up to and including members of the Senate Judiciary Committee in the summer of 2019, that I have been maintaining ever since. So if that had any impact on, yes, it actually did, right? Because my understanding is this derivative action that is specifically being undertaken right now has to do again with gas and oil in the Ukraine, or gas and oil in and through the Ukraine, per an understanding that the specific case I had requested an appeal to the Court of Appeals in regards to referenced case law associated with a maritime vessel originally flagged Ukrainian that has its anniversary today. If I'm not mistaken, it does, right? So somebody was being very crafty in that regard. But again, before we get there, I want to just read something, an excerpt from a book I have here, just so you do not make any mistake. My understanding is that in order for one to qualify for Secret Service, there is a very specific, comprehensive vetting process, and that there are a variety of background checks as well as contracts, including non disclosures, perhaps, or specific matters related to the individual or individuals with whom one is going to be working, that have to be signed and have to be verified before you can say you're Secret Service for anybody. And if you haven't done that and you represent yourself as a Secret Service agent, then you are committing a crime. You are impersonating a Secret Service agent. Now, I have this book here on the history of the Secret Service. It is written by, among other things, a professor of political science who did extensive research on the Kennedy's assassination, as well as another journalist who wrote several books. And this is one of the things that it says. I'm just going to read this briefly. Today's counterfeiters use a wide range of sophisticated techniques and technology. Scanners, photocopiers, plates for printing bills made by etching with acid rather than engraving by hand. These and many other tools can churn out a flood of bogus bills. The more the technology advances, the greater grows the pressure on the Secret Service to put counterfeiters out of business before huge amounts of phony bills get into circulation. Of all the agency's duties, catching counterfeiters is the one that depends most upon public cooperation. The service actively cultivates public support for this mission. Let me repeat that. And the service actively cultivates public support for this mission. Quick recognition of phony money and prompt reporting by citizens enables the service to zero in on the counterfeiters more rapidly. The service's public relations efforts, meager as they are in comparison with some federal agencies, emphasize public education and participation in stopping counterfeiters. Its glossy brochure, Know Your Money, the descendant of the successful anti-counterfeiting campaign of World War II, is the largest, most ambitious one the service publishes. The brochure features blow-ups of bills with instructions on how to detect counterfeit money by scrutinizing the presidential portrait, the serial number, and the paper. The usually publicity-shy service even awards U.S. savings bonds to citizens whose alert reporting helps nab counterfeiters, and it presents these awards with as much press coverage as possible. According to the service, the modern counterfeiter is usually someone with expertise in photography and/or printing. Phony bills are usually wholesaled to some group or criminal organization that will attempt to pass them, with the counterfeiter typically netting 10 to 50% of the face value. Secret Service laboratories analyze phony bills for fingerprints and also trace the materials used in making them. Using special chemicals that react to traces of human perspiration, the service can detect latent prints on bills, bonds, and checks. Each year, agents seize massive stashes of counterfeit bills before they hit the nation's businesses and banks. Agents frequently work undercover to infiltrate counterfeiting operations, sometimes posing as underworld buyers who are looking to purchase large blocks of counterfeit money, stock certificates, or bonds. Such purchases usually involve large amounts of cash. In one case, the counterfeiter offered an undercover agent $5 million in phony treasury notes for the price of $450,000. The service will also set up pseudo-fencing operations so that they can make contact with a number of counterfeit rings. In 2002, forgery is the second major area of the Secret Service's money mission. Each year, staggering sums of money are lost nationwide because of forged bonds and checks. Blank checks or bonds stolen from mailboxes or banks are cashed with forged signatures, and in a single year, the Secret Service will investigate well over 100,000 cases involving forged government checks. In one case, a postal clerk swiped 600 blank government checks and sold them before the service caught him. This is from pages 190 to 191 of The Secret Service, The Hidden History of an Enigmatic Agency by Philip M. Melanson, Ph.D., and Peter F. Stevens. This is a book. I purchased it myself. Why? Because I was curious. I wanted to know more about the Secret Service. You don't get to say you're Secret Service, and you don't get to say you are Secret Service, and you certainly don't get to steal somebody else's identity, counterfeit it, including by changing the name to say it's yours, and then say you're justified doing so because that person's Secret Service. If you are somebody that's actually legitimately in public office and or in a position where you have a need for the services of the Secret Service, then it behooves you to assure that your Secret Service is in a position where they can do their job safely and legally, which means that they are not themselves guilty of some form of bribery and or other crime connected to being availed of the illicit proceeds connected to counterfeiting. The Secret Service's job when it comes to counterfeiting, specifically regarding bond fraud, including bond fraud involving war bonds, is very important. It's certainly very important now, and it's certainly been very important in the last 10 years when we are dealing with a time frame wherein the first Liberty Bond issues from the United States would otherwise have come due on their centennial. Now, there have been changes to the law that happened in the 1970s regarding bearer bonds issued by the United States, but I contend that what has been happening, specifically in the last 5 years, is that some people held on to their original bearer bonds and tried to avail themselves of maneuvers that were engaged in Europe, including in 2017, with an anticipation that if they could get bearer bonds, including original bearer bonds from the United States, involved in a situation wherein they could then offload them in the European market, then they would be able to cash in on them. in a manner and with attachments or associations that would not otherwise be available, and certainly wouldn't have been available if they had followed what had been done during the 70s. This was a very important thing that happened in the 70s when the United States changed the laws regarding those original bearer bonds. We've been dealing with it to this time. And for people like me that weren't even born when those laws started going into effect, the idea that people thought that they could start gambling on people like their children and their children's birth certificates, or maybe other children and other children's birth certificates, including potentially children who had birth certificates from other countries, including other countries that may have been involved in their own relationship with original Liberty Bond issues, hoping that, well, the laws change and we just wouldn't know about it, so that by the time our lives came to bear as part of those war bonds, somebody else could claim our identity. The problem is, this is a very significant matter. If you were somebody that was meant to be a bearer bond holder or recipient of the proceeds connected to successfully meeting obligations connected to those bearer bonds, that's very important. But as this book also details, and other things that I have found also detailed, I'm here in Dallas. And during the original Liberty Bond issue, Dallas was a very specific and strategic place where counterfeit bonds were being issued. Have those bonds been attempted for bearing in the last couple of years? Has somebody been persisting in committing to a process of engaging counterfeit bonds and expecting people to be held to counterfeit bonds while legitimate bondholders have been subjected to processes in order to defame or defraud them, so that other people can illicitly avail themselves of the benefits? I can tell you that's exactly what's going on right now. And that's exactly what this derivative case is about. We're going to get to that next.